Hello. The letter to the Romans, chapter 13, verse 1, says this: Everyone must submit himself to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except that which God has established. The authorities that exist have been established by God. Consequently, he who rebels against the authority is rebelling against what God has instituted, and those who do so will bring judgment on themselves. Obey your leaders and submit to their authority. I think I can understand why the American people voted for Donald Trump in the first place. His opponent, if you remember back to that last election, his opponent Hillary Clinton sat in the White House like some imperial ruler, surrounded by a court of gleaming celebrities, while Trump stumped around the country shouting at thousands of people who felt they'd been uninvited to the National Party. The first 2 years of his rule went well, in a way. He did achieve full employment and growth in the economy, and Americans who can find it very easy to be disinterested in the rest of the world didn't look very hard at the long-term consequences of his foreign policies. COVID began to bring the wheels off his chariot. He seemed to have reached a point where he felt that if he said something, drink domestos and you'll stay safe, it must be true. I suppose if you instantly sack anyone who ventures to disagree with you and end up being surrounded by pliable toadies, that's liable to happen. Thus, when COVID advances through the nation at an alarming rate, and many of the people who voted for you lose confidence in you, you're blissfully unaware of it. By the end of 4 years, you're incapable of believing that they've fallen out of love with you. And when the vote goes against you, it must be because of foul play. Well, thus the self-delusions of an egocentric demagogue. But what puzzled me was, why did so many people buy his totally unsubstantiated allegations about voting fraud? I listened with interest to what the people who stormed Capitol Hill said to interviewers afterwards. A recurrent theme was, well, this country was born out of revolution and achieved its freedoms that way, so we need to have another revolution to regain our freedoms. The logic, of course, is totally faulty. But I wonder whether Trump, deliberately or accidentally, touched a hidden American nerve. Let me come nearer to home to explain what I mean. Tamworth is a 97% white working class town. It is also a place full of fat people. It used to be the obesity capital of Britain, but we've slumped now for some reason to 4th place. Even so, it's still pretty full of fatties. Why? Well, talk to older people here, and their forebears went through the worst of the 1930s, and in some cases 2 miners' strikes. Having known times when you weren't sure if you could put food on the family table, a tape runs in the unconscious of many Tamworth people. When you see food, eat it. You don't know where the next meal's coming from. And the food that you eat will be designed to fill a hole in your stomach rather than make you healthy. Times are better now, of course, and for most of us the opportunity arises to eat more than is actually good for us. We know we shouldn't be stuffing the calories down us, but if the unconscious tape is running, eat food when you see it, then it will control our eating habits, even if in our head we know we're not doing ourselves well. Similarly, freedom is to be established by revolution is a tape running in many Americans' unconscious, strengthened by their annual celebrations of the various events and battles which eventually led to independence from Britain. America is a far more religious country than ours, and certainly a more Christian one. What would have happened if they'd obeyed Hebrews 13:1 and many other scriptures in similar vein, and acceded to the British government's taxation without representation? In the short term, it would have been undoubtedly unfair. Why pay taxes to a distant government who gives you no say in your land's affairs? Winston Churchill, in his History of the English-Speaking Nations, portrays the colonists as Englishmen, standing up for an Englishman's rights before George III, an uncomprehending German king. Why does God forbid things to us which may seem harmless or unimportant or even positively good? Sometimes it's because he sees beyond what we see. He sees the long terms of our actions. Have I said that right? I'll say that again. He sees the long-term consequences of our actions, individual or corporate. Is democracy, as it has been prized and practiced in America for over 200 years, under threat? Time will tell. But let them be warned. The world is full of countries which have all the trappings of democracy and none of its substance. They all have an episode of revolution or rebellion in their history, and now, maybe a long time after the revolution has been and come and gone, they're reaping what their forebears sowed. Let's pray that you and I be a blessing to our great-great-grandchildren, who we may never see, but who will be blessed or cursed by what we decide. Bye-bye.